I recently saw this headline that said an AI was writing its own code to improve itself. And as someone who works in AI, I am always excited when people are asking the question, can AI do X? Because usually the answer is yes, but they're asking the wrong question. The right question is, how can I use AI to do X? And in this case, I thought it would be fun to try out this AI and see how good it is at writing its own code. The article that I read about this was actually an interview with one of the creators of AutoGPT. So I went over to their website and I found that they have a little demo here where we can try out this model ourselves. So let's go ahead and see what this is all about. So the first thing we need to do is give it some kind of goal. So for example, we could say, write a Python function that checks if a list has any even numbers. And then from there we could hit start and see how this goes. One of the interesting things about this demo is that they show us the actual chat log between the human and the AI as it's happening. So we can see that the AI says, okay, here's a Python function that checks if a list has any even numbers. Then the human asks it to explain it, and the AI explains it to them. Then the human asks to optimize the code, and the AI says, you're right. It can be optimized by using the any function. Here's the optimized code. And now we get to see the final code, which it wrote all on its own. However, there's one thing that I'm noticing right away, which is that the AI is actually very slow. If you actually look at the timestamps, it takes like 10 or 20 minutes for the AI to respond sometimes. Now I do want to know if this is because they trying to limit how much compute this demo uses, but either way, let's go ahead and click try again just so we can see the process once more. This time I'm going to give it a slightly harder task, which is to write a program that finds all the prime factors of a number. So let's go ahead and click start and we'll see what happens. This is where the AI starts writing its code. And you can see that it writes some code. It gets a response back. Then it writes some more code, gets another response back. And then eventually it prints out the final code. Now, as someone who works in the field of AI, I am extremely unsurprised that this exists. In fact, I am kind of surprised that this took this long to come out. Because essentially what this is doing is it's taking GPT-4 and wrapping some extra code around it that allows it to use the APIs that are necessary to use the OpenAI API. And then from there, it's setting up a bunch of different variables and loops that allow it to iterate over the outputs of GPT-4 and put them into the format that GPT-4 likes so that it can iterate over them again and eventually output the code that we want. So to me, this isn't really surprising. What is surprising is how well this works. So here's the final code that it wrote. And if we scroll down just a little bit more, we can see that the AI actually tests this function and makes sure that it works. And for the most part, it did. There's a couple edge cases that it didn't quite get right, but it only took 19 minutes to do this. That is absolutely incredible. Now, I think one of the coolest things about this is that, technically speaking, this AI is now able to improve itself. What I mean by that is, it can take the code that it wrote, decide whether it thinks it's good enough or not, and then run that code again if it needs to. And so now it's technically capable of improving itself. And to me, that is just a huge deal. In fact, I think this is a really good segue into a conversation we've been having on the channel lately about whether we should be scared of AI or not. And my consistent answer to that is no. We should not be scared of AI. We should be excited about it. And this is exactly why. Because just like this AI is able to use GPT-4 to help it write better code faster, we are also able to use AI to help us do our jobs better and faster. For example, I remember not too long ago we were talking about all the different tools that data scientists use on a day-to-day basis. And I remember specifically saying that I wish there was a tool that could automate the process of creating these MLOps pipelines that we create for our models. We spend so much time doing this. It would be nice if there was a tool that could automate that process. And guess what? They exist now. There are tools that can automatically generate MLOps pipelines based on what you tell it. I made a video about this a while ago. And so the same thing applies to literally every job that I can think of. Whether you're a data scientist, a software engineer, a product manager, a designer, it doesn't matter. AI is going to make your job easier, period. And some people might lose their jobs due to AI, sure, but others will gain new jobs that we haven't even thought of yet. So I personally am extremely excited about this, but I'd love to hear from you guys. Do you think this is cool? Are you scared of AI? Let me know in the comments below. Next, I actually want to talk about this concept of how we can use the OpenAI API and how we can wrap our own code around it to make it do interesting things. Because honestly, this entire demo, while impressive, is pretty limited in what it can do. So I actually want to talk about how we can use the OpenAI API ourselves and make something kind of cool. If you're interested in learning more about the OpenAI API and how you can use it, I highly recommend checking out a website that's completely free and self-paced. You can learn at your own pace, and they have a ton of great courses over there. Alright, so here's an idea. So, remember how this AI was able to find the prime factors of a number? We could set up a website where we can input a number and then it finds the prime factors of that number, and we can see the result on the website. So basically, we resetting up a website front end that sends a request to our AI and then renders the results of that AI on the website front end. So we could use something like Streamlit to set up the front end really easily. And then we could use something like LangChain to make it easy for us to interface with the OpenAI API. So let's go ahead and install those two packages. Then from there, we're going to import Streamlit as Saint and LangChain as LC. Then for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to define a function called find_prime_factors that takes in a number as an argument and returns the prime factors of that number. Then inside of the function, we set up a prompt template that we send to OpenAI's API. And the prompt template is basically just a string that has some variables in it that we plug in later. So we say find the prime factors of this number. And then we plug in the number that we want to find the prime factors of. From there, we're going to use the OpenAI API and LC, OpenAI, create to send a message to OpenAI's API. And then we're going to return the result. So let's go ahead and test out our function with the number 12 and see if it works. So we can print out the result, and it looks like it worked perfectly. So now we can go ahead and copy this function, and then